which will be an address by the Portfolio Secretary for Local Government, Mr. Sesil Zvidzai, on the state of local government in Zimbabwe. However, and before we get into that, a few remarks. Zimbabwe faces a crisis in the functioning of local authorities and the ability of municipalities and town councils to deliver basic services to the citizens. The challenges faced by local authorities have been compounded by a harsh economic environment, which has crippled citizens' capacity to pay their rates, and systemic interference in the operations of our respective councils. However, the crisis Zimbabwe faces in the administration of its local authorities is but a symptom of the broader legitimacy and bad governance crisis and general dysfunction that pervades our nation. We reiterate that the root cause of Zimbabwe's multiple crises remains a political gridlock anchored by a crisis of legitimacy emanating from the November 2017 military coup and the flawed 2018 harmonized election. This has been compounded by 4 decades of destructive, predatory, and exclusive politics, which has created a society captured by a broken down social contract, a deep lack of trust, alienation of the ordinary citizen, indifference, intolerance, and polarization. Now, at the core of the local government crisis is the refusal by ZANU-PF to implement the constitutional imperative of devolution. Devolution is a necessary vehicle for doing away with the over-centralized system of government, for deepening democracy, promoting locally driven development, improving the delivery of public services, and promoting national integration and peace while recognizing diversity. Because of the delay and lack of political will to wholeheartedly implement devolution as required by our Constitution, the citizens have been unable to reap the benefits of fiscal, administrative, and political autonomy. As we've seen in recent weeks and months, the veil of political autonomy is meaningless if it is not accompanied by fiscal autonomy, which entails the ability to raise and spend revenue by a local authority. In the example of Zinara controlling road funds, but an expectation that councils fix our roads quickly comes to mind. We also have, as you'll hear from Mr. Sesil Zvidzai, the absence of administrative autonomy and the continuous interference by ZANU-PF functionaries, including the Ministry of Local Government, the Local Government Board, and the Provincial Development Coordinators. Local authorities urgently need administrative reform. A body exercising devolved powers usually enjoys some form of administrative autonomy. This form of autonomy entails that a subnational or local unit can appoint and dismiss its staff as well as determine remuneration levels. It also means that there is some discretion to determine their own administrative structures and procedures. Now, I've said before, and I will say again, that Zimbabwe is at a crossroads where we are faced with a battle for the soul of our nation. Democracy is not only under threat, but it's been bludgeoned by ZANU-PF. Just yesterday, 6 of our Midlands Youth Assembly members were punished and convicted for participating in a peaceful protest, and yet Section 59 of our Constitution guarantees the right to protest and demonstrate peacefully. These are some of the reasons why our nation is in a state of deep crisis. There is an urgent need to reform not only central government, but the functioning of local government by inter alia aligning the Urban Councils Act to the new constitution to ensure that elected council officials have real power to implement administrative action, to run their own budgets, to hire and manage their own staff, and for the post of executive mayor to be reinstated, to remove the current anomaly where our councils have responsibility but no power. Ladies and gentlemen, the call to action could not be clearer. As President Nelson Chamisa has said time and again, we must come together and form a united front to defeat ZANU-PF. ZANU-PF continues to hamstring the functioning of our local councils, as you'll hear today. They've launched a massive campaign of political persecution of our leading council officials and mayors, the most recent example being the persecution of Mayor Jacob Mafume. We continue to demand his urgent release. We reject the sliding back of Zimbabwe into a one-party state. It's time for the citizens to fight back because ZANU-PF has destroyed Zimbabwe. We remain engaged and refuse to be sucked into apathy. ZANU-PF must go. The MDC Alliance has no hesitation in leading the charge, which is why we stand here today, firm, as the nation's only credible democratic alternative and ready to win Zimbabwe for change. The big fights that the MDC Alliance has taken on, the fight for a people's government, the fight for legitimacy and democracy, the fight for livelihoods and a better life for all Zimbabweans, the fight against corruption, the fight in defense of the Constitution and constitutionalism all require unity of purpose among democratic and progressive forces. We have no doubt that the fight to win Zimbabwe for change, the fight for a better, brighter, and more prosperous Zimbabwe will be won, which is why we are championing the struggle. We must return Zimbabwe to prosperity, including through the smooth functioning of our cities and our towns. We must revive the Zimbabwean dream. We must ensure nobody is left behind and that our great nation begins to work for the many and not the few. And so without further ado, I'll defer proceedings to our Portfolio Secretary for Local Government, Mr. Sesil Zvidzai, who will present an address on the state of local government in Zimbabwe. Thank you.
And thank you so much, members of the press. Before I get to my address, which I put on PowerPoint, to emphasize certain issues, I wish to wish you a Merry Christmas and hopefully a much better 2021. As government and rural development in the MDC Alliance. And today, I appreciate a lot that you have presented yourselves so that we can talk about local government from our perspective as the MDC Alliance. But what is the context? Slide one, Mazango. The context of local government is around issues of shared power, devolved power among three tiers of government, namely central government, provincial and metropolitan councils, and local authorities. So there is that geometric relationship between these three tiers of government. Next slide talks to issues of the laws regulating or creating the relationships between the three tiers of government. You've got the Constitution, which is very clear on how local authorities should work. It's very clear. It emphasizes that local authorities should be managed by elected people only, and with emphasis. Then you've got the Urban Councils Act, you've got the Rural District Council Act, you've got the Regional Town and Country Planning Act, which is a highly contentious issue at the moment, as we shall discuss as we move forth. And you've got the Traditional Leadership Act. If you look at all these acts, They are not friendly to the provisions of the Constitution. And therein lies the genesis of our problem in this country. That people went to a referendum and 97% of the people said yes to all the provisions in the Constitution, including devolution. And there is reluctance. 7 years down the road, there is no appetite to make sure that these provisions, these demands of the Constitution are implemented. So what then is the character of our intergovernmental relationships? What is the character of the relationship between central government and provincial government, between provincial governments and local authorities, both rural and urban local authorities? The relationship is best described as fraught with issues of interference, particularly at local authority level. Central government has got a serious appetite to be central government as well as to be local authorities. And this is a disease, this is a problem that we together across the political divide, we have to deal with this if Zimbabwe should move forward. Look at certain important issues that I want to talk to so that we can emphasize and graphically look at the issues of interference. Look at procurement. A lot of people talk about corruption by councillors, etc. Unbeknown to many, procurement in all local authorities is controlled by local government, central government. And unlike in the past, where the councils used to have what they called procurement boards, those have been abolished and replaced by procurement committees of staff. It's a big problem. We will go back to this and see how that affects the efficacy of service delivery in our local authorities. Let's look at staffing. We'll also get into details around it. Staff recruitment in all local authorities, from director and above, town clerk, directors, it's all done by central government. Budgets, as you all know, budgets are passed by central government. If central government says no, then that's it. And in most cases, local authorities lose 3, 4, 5 months of revenue because of delayed passing of budgets. Normally, the minister will pass out the budgets in April, and that's 4 months of revenue lost. Innovation. These councils come up with very bright ideas on how to best manage their territory, but these innovations are normally delayed, stopped, truncated by central government. Again, we'll get into details around this. Confidence. You know, this is one of the key issues that lacks in the relationship matrix between our local authorities and central government. There is lots of mistrust. You can touch the mistrust. If you go to Harare City Council today, it's palpable. You can play with it like a jaguar with the mistrust. You can touch it, you can see it, it's there. And under those circumstances, it's very difficult to deliver. You know, it's difficult enough to do the job. It's worse if it's made more difficult by deliberately by central government and other players. Issues of control, you know, way back, I remember when the late Vice President Musika was Minister of Local Government. May his soul rest in peace. He was a good man, but he had seriously different beliefs on local government compared to ourselves. He said local governments exist at the pleasure of central government. Wrong. Central government should not determine whether the people have said they want local government through the constitutional provisions. They have voted for local government. So indeed, local government should exist at the pleasure of the people. Issues of resources. Very big problem there. in that fiscal transfers from the center. Most of you know government used to have the public sector investment PSIP programs, which used to go into infrastructure development, try to make infrastructure a little more pleasant, match the times, but it has all dried up. And when you get it, it's inequitable. What a problem that it's insufficient. Well, the bigger problem is that it's inequitable. There is no formula, there is no predetermined formula on how these transfers go to councils. I remember when I was deputy minister, we gave more money to Uzumba Maramba Fungwe for roads than we gave to Harare. I've got no problem with that. Yes, we must develop the rural areas, but we need issues of equity. It must be equitable. Where is the more population? Where is the more need? So we are generally talking about issues of the state of local government, of local government in the country. And in summary, we observe that there is an environment of intergovernmental competition rather than cooperation. Central government competes with local authorities rather than cooperate with local authorities. And naturally, it's a poisoned environment. Work of tiers of government, they are not aligned with the Constitution. So all these Urban Councils Act, Road Use Council Act, Regional Town and Planning Act, all these laws are fall foul of the Constitution. So it's like banditry, governance banditry in the country. And most dangerous is the politically polarized environment in our matrix. There is serious political polarization, and this leads to inequity around transfers. It leads to dysfunctionalization of committees of council through uncalled for and illegal recalls. So these have rendered our local authorities dysfunctional. Some of the committees cannot even form a quorum. Councils themselves cannot form quorum. They can't sit to dispense with business of the people as they desire, because sometimes they just get arrested in the middle of a council meeting, discrediting the chambers. These are respected places where the business of the people is transacted. And central government has got the audacity to disturb these. So as a result, the truth is that the state of local government at the moment is that it doesn't deliver to the expectations of the people. So what are the truths? What are the truths around self-delivery? That's not a manufactured picture. Neither is it a Pumvuda project. It's some of our roads that have become impassable. It's a truth around self-delivery. Shelter, the contagious issue of shelter at the moment. It's a reality around failure to deliver. The neighborhoods, even the built-up environments are dilapidated and are not pleasant. Recreational and amusement parks are non-existent anymore. Safety and security, if the moonlight is poor, you might be marked on your way home. Transport for commuting publics is erratic, and the list goes on and on. People are not happy about at all about the services. This is the reality, but we want to say, yes, this is the reality. How do we move forward? So What is the truth? A clear truth is that the rural-urban migration is a reality. And Harare, for example, the population has increased twofold since 1980, but there is no matching investment in infrastructure. That's the truth. What are the hindrances to self-delivery? Some of it we have already talked about as we do this, Mazango. Look at procurement is done by central government. Budgets are passed by central government. There is no flexibility to explore local creativity because you don't believe in the next person. You don't believe in the next institution. You believe in yourself only. It doesn't work. It's never meant to be like that. And there is excessive interference by central government. People don't believe this, but I've said before that the ministers, I don't know the problem, the minister of local government. You get a guy like July Moyo, who is a top class local government practitioner, who is a very sensible person, but appoint him to Ministry of Local Government. He wants to determine the number of teaspoons of sugar in Gomba's tea. He wants to run local government. I don't know where it's lost. Is it the system? Clearly it's the system. Let's go back to issues I've spoken about, and I just want to graphically talk to issues of water treatment and centralization of procurement. We all know that all the procurement of chemicals for treatment of water is done centrally. Not only is it done centrally, but central government has also said all procurement has to be, you have to buy all your requirements from one company called Chemplex. And let me tell you what Chemplex does with respect to a few of the water treatment chemicals like hydrated lime, sulfuric acid, aluminum sulfate, activated carbon, sodium silicate. They simply import. Go to Zambia and get a hydrated lime at $120 a ton. Transport it here, stock it a bit, and Harare buys it for $500. These are facts. So central government is sucking nearly $300 from the struggling city of Harare through a well-calculated method of taking away money from the people and weakening the local authority, making sure that it fails to deliver. If city of Harare could just access Forex and buy hydrated lime from Zambia itself, they would land it here for $200. That would reduce the cost of treating water very, very significantly. Therein lies the reverse side of economies of scale. Economies of scale in this case fail. This principle fails because of corruption. The added cost is corruption. Now, what used to happen is that Zimfos used to manufacture aluminum sulfate. Zimfos used to manufacture, G&W Minerals used to manufacture lime, hydrated lime. Zimfos used to manufacture salt. What has gone wrong? What has gone wrong? Let's move in that direction, spend money, resuscitate Zimfos so that our water can be cheaper than it is at the moment. A case of interference with senior staff recruitment. In 2016, the city of Harare went through a very rigorous process of looking for a town clerk. And I was Secretary for Local Government then, and our mayor was Mr. Manyenyeni. And I can tell you he did a very good job around the recruitment of town clerk. They went through professional consultants, etc. And we ended up with James Mushore, a renowned banker, a man who could structure a complicated and effective financial arrangement for the city of Harare. We said, he is the man. He's the best. The day he was appointed, Sesil Sukuere, minister then fired him, and actually told him that the town clerk of Harare is the second biggest job in the country, and it won't be taken by anybody who is not ZANU-PF. Period. And there, we lost the capacity to turn around Harare. We believe that James Mushore had the credentials, the qualities, and the qualifications, the knowledge and the networks which would have enabled him to turn around Harare. But political opportunity wouldn't allow. A chance to get to the feeding trough through corruption at Harare would not happen with him. So there we are. People have to understand this. And central government has got this knack as well of interfering with stifling council's innovations. The city of Harare, for example, had a plan to unbundle. They had this unbundling strategy where they wanted to create utilities so that you could have a water utility specifically specializing on water. And this is how other jurisdictions do it to improve efficiency. No, it won't happen because then the MDC will show its capacity to govern, will be able to deliver better, so you won't do it. They also wanted to remodel the service delivery models, look at a business approach. For example, refuse removal, they wanted to do conversion of waste to energy. But because of the Joint Venture Act, they have to go to central government, and it takes forever before that can happen. And meanwhile, we are losing time. We are losing opportunities. So what is it? Are we just complaining? What could we do as MDC if we were the managers of these complex relationships between our several tiers of government? So we would pursue a smart local governance system, and it's a system that we believe would deliver. What would we do? We would allow councils to employ on merit and reward as they feel. Some of you know what happened in 2010 when the central government allowed very, very obnoxious, some used to call that pornographic salaries at City of Harare, where a town clerk would get $37,000 US. Central government. What else would we do? Just leave it there, Masango. A legislative agenda that will align the laws with the Constitution. It's correct to do that. And there is a reason for the need for devolution, so that you can extract the best potential out of the people, so that people can specialize on their particular peculiarities. You see, the local government board is an unnecessary cost. It's a completely unnecessary cost. It's foul of the Constitution. We would not go that direction. We would also, in terms of legislation, make sure that our mayors who have certain qualifications, certain experience, our councillors, our committee chairpersons, we will create certain qualification and practical experience thresholds below which you can't be a mayor. Next. Local government funding, very critical area here. Very, very critical area. Let's look at fiscal devolution. I said we need equity and we need sufficiency. A lot of people compare us with South Africa. In South Africa, the DA is in control of the Western Cape, the EF, certain areas. But because there is a formula on who gets what and how much, they are not excluded. They are not disadvantaged from receiving they should receive based on the formula that exists. So there we are. That's what smart local governance will do, whether it's a ZANU-PF controlled council, or it's an MDC, or it's up, or whatever. We work on a formula that makes sure that the people, the issue is the people. Make sure that the issues of the people in those localities can be funded. Okay, legislation will also make sure that put through legislation to make sure that there is flexibility. Today, if a local authority wants to borrow X amount of money to do certain infrastructure work, it's so tortuous. You can't do it. It can't with this government. And they take pleasure in that because, and yet, they should be understanding that they are at the apex of the mix. Next, intergovernmental relationships. You see, at the moment, it's important to create a platform to engender intergovernmental cooperation. That doesn't exist. What exists at the moment is a flag to be resolved. And you also have a lot of center-periphery bullying in this country. Muguti will just go to Chitumbu and say, tomorrow you must demolish X, Y, Z. And if you don't, we'll fire you. If you don't, we strangulate your revenue sources. So that sort of bullying is not good for delivery of services. Why are we procurement? I think we have dealt with that a lot. Let's move to the next one. People in local government. We believe that in local government there is a critical board P, participation of the people. People at the center of it all. So you see what the mad recalls today, where a person is elected by 6,000 people and one person recalls. Where are the people? Where are the people? Where are the people in the policy formulation? Where are the people around issues of implementation of certain policies, or even crafting, sculpting those policies? People in the center. And I think this is our last slide. Very important. I just wanted to put that right at the bottom because people think when we talk about the need for a legitimate government, there is no clear understanding. People begin to think that it's an excuse. It's an excuse. But what happens if you have got a central government that, as I said, whose heart is at war, which is fighting everybody? It's fighting the mayor, it's fighting residents' associations, it's fighting the common man on the street, it's fighting the poor, it's not fighting poverty. So that's the character of the central government. A legitimate government cares for the people because it knows it's there because of the people. But an illegitimate government doesn't care about the people because it knows it's in there because of guns and other things. In the absence of a legitimate government, it's very difficult for this country to move. It's very difficult for local authorities to deliver. There is serious interdependence between all these spheres of government, and if one of them is illegit, the whole chain breaks up. So I just thought we'd talk about that. We need a government that drives an economy that functions. We need a government that sits down and says, we are so much endowed with the special materials in this country to develop the country. These endowments must benefit the people, and there is plenty of this. Zimbabwe, of the 7 wonders of the world, 2 are in our boundaries. It's a unique thing. It's a first in platinum, maybe number 2. It's first in petalite, lithium. It's the mineral of the future. It's first, there is no other Vic Falls. There is no other Zimbabwe ruins. These are unique things that we should pivot on to develop this economy, to make sure that people can benefit from these endowments. We need a government which does not compete or sabotage lower tiers of government. I mean, if you ask me, or if I ask you, what is really the role of Chidao in Harare? His role is to put as many hurdles on the way of service delivery so that the MDC doesn't look good. It can't be like that. A big snake should not bite its tail. But this one devours its tail. We also want a central government which lives as zero tolerance to corruption. A central government that doesn't chase small fish and leaves the sharks stealing. These are the solutions. This is how you can get to a smart local governance system. And I know questions will come through. I thank you for listening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much to our Secretary for Local Government, Mr. Sesil Zvidzai. We had a wonderful opportunity to draw on his rich experience in the sphere of local government. So at this point, without further ado, I'd like to open up the platform for a few questions to those that have them, and then we'll proceed. So if you could kindly just raise your hand, indicate your name and house, and we'll take your questions. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Zvidzai, having said all this, what do you think is the way forward now as it is, the situation bent as you said? What is the way forward from your point of view as MDC Alliance?
Well, I mean, all this that we have said is a whole matrix of solutions to the challenges that we have. But central to the challenge is the issues around legitimacy. For as long as you've got a central government with a heart at war, movement will be very slow. Friction is too much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Yes, Austin, you.
Costa from News.com. I just want to ask a couple of questions.
Maybe just ask one and then we'll do a round and then I'll come back.
You just briefly touched about the demolitions of the illegal homes, we put it that way. But you just touched it briefly. I just want to understand what role did your councillors or your party play in the recent demolitions in Budiru?
Firstly, in our language here, the MDC Alliance, we have got nothing like an illegal settlement. We have got unplanned settlements. Illegal has to be dealt with and demolished. Unplanned settlements can be regularized. So most of the houses that were demolished in Budiru could have been regularized. Yes, a few could have been demolished in pursuit of regularization. So it's sad that this keeps happening. And the footprint is indelibly written with respect to who has passed through there. This is a miniature Muramba China. And there is simply no other station that should take culpability for this except Muguti, Chidau, Julai Moyo, ED, and ZANU.
Mr. Mhlanga?
These demolitions were all done on court orders obtained by councils that you, as the MDC Alliance, lead. Why did you get the court orders?
It's in pursuit of regularization. We knew that in the process of regularization, certain homes will certainly suffer. It was never meant to go out and onto that housing estate and just demolish everything. That was not the meaning, that was not the spirit of the request we had in the courts. It was actually, end of the day, if it had been left to us, and you know very well that before his arrest, Mayor Mafume clearly said, we are going to execute these humanely. We will make sure that anything that can be regularized will be regularized. And only those few houses that cannot be regularized will be demolished in the interest of the greater public, so that you can have safe lands, so that you can have roads, you can put in sewer lines there, you can put in water. That was the idea.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Costa, you said you had more than one question. Would you like to ask another one?
No, I still want to follow up on the issue of demolitions. Because it's kind of, we are stating from my question, what role did you play? Did you approve the demolitions? That's what I want to get from you. Did your councillors, did your party approve the demolitions of the recent homes?
I thought I've answered that it's not in our character to push the poor deeper into poverty. We are a pro-poor party, and we don't relate with the poor. Tichuati, it's China. We don't do that. So our councillors know that position very clearly. Our councillors got these orders way back, and they were busy trying to find the most humane way to implement, to execute. And what happens? The mayor gets arrested, the deputy mayor gets arrested, councillors get recalled, and in the absence of policymakers, the ZANU-PF functionaries, in the manner of the appointed town clerks and them, execute in typical ZANU-PF fashion.
No, I'm asking this because recently the provincial director, Mr. Mbude, I don't know his specific title, he actually said we are working together with the Harare City Council, which is dominated by councillors, to demolish, to pass a resolution. And it is your councillors, it is the Harare City Council that took these people to court. And the court granted an order in favor of them.
Central government to bully us and take that competence away, and they played around with that competence and led to cholera. The only place where there was no cholera, was it coincidence? None in Mashingo, none in Blawayo. So we've learned from the past that we can't let down the people that fought for us. We will fight to the precipice in defense of the people that fought for us. And this is why, if they recall all our councillors and leave one, we allow that councillor to continue with the mandate in defense of the people. That's the first thing. The second thing is we must fight for the democratic space, for the people, with the people. We won't walk away from zones where the people have said, please, we prefer your policies to ZANU-PF. We won't let down the people. It's unfair, it's wrong, it's weak.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to find out, you mentioned something on the procurement when you said that chemicals are being bought from SA at certain absurd prices. Seeing that you know already that these things are happening, it's already affecting Zimbabweans at large. We also have issues to do with billings, whereby from nowhere councils just raise their bills, and most people are already failing to pay these bills. You as a party, are you also approving the increase of the billings? Because if you are, does it not then contradict with you having the people at heart? Because people are paying for disposal of garbage, but the trucks are not coming, and people are paying their bills, their water bills, but people are going for weeks and months with no water. What are you as a council doing, pertaining to the people's upkeep in Zimbabwe?
Yeah, thank you for that question. The answer is very simple. We are doing a lot of things, including fighting to remove an illegitimate government that has got no idea on how to deal with the economy. And that is the central problem. There is no possibility of any local authority. You can take who is the best person in your place. You can take Nick Mangwana and make him mayor of Harare. He won't succeed as long as the sender is mismanaged, as long as the sender has no ideas how to improve the economy. Now we talk about increasing the rates, the charges. Personally, to begin with, I'm very unfriendly to the sort of taxes or revenue streams that are handed over to local authorities. These are very unproductive, low-yielding taxes. Your rates, your supplementary charges, those cannot fund your needs. You need productive revenue streams that give a major impact on the size of pocket of your local authorities, so that this can be spent in the interest of the people. And if you look at the rate of inflation, look at it. How does your council even afford? They budgeted when we had a 1-to-1 to the dollar. Today it's 1 to X. X is up to you to say what it is. So it makes it difficult. It makes it difficult for local authorities. But they do try, in my opinion. Because if today you will ask make a choice whether to go to Wilkins or to Harare Central, if you had a problem, where would you go to? Certainly you will go to Wilkins. You will go to Beatrice Infectious Disease Center, because your government institutions are killing bags.
Okay, we're going to take one more question in the interest of time. Costa, you've got your hand.
I'm much more interested in these demolitions. I understand that the city of Harare has got nearly 30 court orders that have been granted in their favor. Are you going to execute that?
Well,
then number two is, you mentioned about the interference of the government so much, and how it has crippled the service delivery. Even if we say MDC is running the contest on paper, but practically it is the government that controls everything. So as a way forward, do you think it is the constitution, is it law that really needs to be changed?
Really, I don't think we should be talking about law. The constitution. The constitution is right. It must be implemented. There must be political will to exercise off some of the power to subnational governments so that they can work and deliver. We must all knock and chip at this monolith called the central government. It's the disaster that we all have. It's the elephant roaming in our rooms. We need a central government that is prepared to share power, to devolve power, so that people can, you can unleash the local potential, the pride, the good citizenship that you get when people deal with their own issues. So it's not the constitution that you need to deal with. Yes, you need to align the laws to the constitution. But the biggest problem is what you need to do is to remove Mnangagwa from power.
There's the nearly 30 court orders.
The 30 court orders, interference has already come into place. We all have to work to stop it. But today, Muguti has already published, July Moya said, we won't stop. Oh, look, I mean, the spirit of the law is not exact pain on the citizens. But for them, the spirit of the law is to, and you don't put any human face into it. And then you call yourself a government.
Okay, so all that remains, members of the press, is for me to thank you very much for your time in coming today. We really, really appreciate this. I'd like to also thank our secretary, our portfolio secretary for local government and local authorities, Mr. Sesil Zvidzai, for his extremely insightful presentation and also creating the full context to help us understand why our local authorities are the way they are, the extent to which responsibility lies with the MDC, the extent to which power lies with central government. We're extremely grateful for that. Now, for all the journalists who are keen on a vernacular presentation, please stay behind and we'll be more than happy to offer that to you. Thank you very much, members of the press. It is very likely, bar any eventualities, you never know with our illegitimate government, this will be our last press conference of the year. We'd like to thank you very much as our partners for all the support that you've delivered to us throughout this year, and we look forward to partnering you in 2021. To the extent that it's possible, please have a Merry Christmas. Remember to mask up, wash your hands, and respect physical distancing. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.